But let's move on to the meat and bones of today's show, and that is looking at the south of the country. That is the AFC and NFC South. We're going to start with the NFC South, and we're going to start with last year's champions. That, of course, is the Tennessee Titans. An interesting year for them this year. They, of course, lost AJ Brown in that trade on draft night to the Philadelphia Eagles. They brought in Treylon Burks to take his place, which is going to be interesting. Of course, they brought in Malik Willis as well, which they hope, I'm sure, will take over from Ryan Tannehill in a year or two. The Julio Jones experiment, unfortunately, did not work out last year for the team. He spent a lot of the time out injured. Bringing in Robert Woods, though, I think is a very underrated signing by the team. I think he's going to be really good. He spent last year on the injured list as well with his ACL injury, so hopefully he can come back. And I think it's going to be important for the development of Burks too, that he has someone experienced like Woods there beside him, so that it doesn't feel like it's all, of course, on him. From what I'm seeing reports that their 2021 first round pick, Caleb Farley, has had a really, really good offseason too. He came into the team with injury issues from college, especially with his back. So there's a bit of changes for Coach Vrabel around the team, but I'm sure he's not going to allow the sort of the level of quality to sort of dip. One player we haven't mentioned as well that you have to mention when you talk about the Tennessee Titans is Derrick Henry. And he, of course, he spent some of the time injured last season. He came back. I felt he was rushed back. He didn't look fit. And I think that also coincided with them making an early exit in the playoffs. So it's an interesting one with the Tennessee Titans this year. They sort of, for me, they have been sort of on a level. They haven't gone up, they haven't gone down. But the problem is so many other teams in the AFC have gone up with these big moves that they're making, especially in the West that we talked about already. And I don't know if what they have done is going to be enough to A, keep the number one seed that they had last year, and B, maybe make a decent run in the playoffs. But Jake, I'm going to start with you on this one. What do you feel about the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the Tennessee Titans. I don't like Ryan Tannehill most of all. The rest of the team is actually fine. Mike Vrabel I like as well, but I think the hamstring they have is Ryan Tannehill, and he's okay because he's got Derrick Henry, and that means the whole offense is almost going to run smooth as anything. So, yeah, I think they're going to be fine, as you said there. I don't think they took a step up, but they certainly haven't really taken a step back either. So. The Treylon Burks thing, I thought that was quite an interesting one, like a mini AJ Brown, a rookie version of him, but perhaps maybe not so injured as AJ Brown has been. So maybe that was the thought process, not paying an older wide receiver a lot of money to be injured. So yeah, no, I like that draft pick. I think, am I hearing him kind of struggling with the athletics part of it in the NFL preseason and stuff and training camp, or is that just, am I imagining that? But anyway, and the Robert Woods one I think is a good one as well there, because yeah, as you said, it's going to help Treylon Burks kind of navigate into the NFL world and bring him up to speed. So if he can stay healthy, that team's going to be a lot better than I think. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them, to be honest.
Rian, what do you think about the Titans this year?
Well, look, I think they're probably the only position that they've downgraded at is wide receiver. And that's with a big asterisk because of the health issues that both Julio Jones and AJ Brown have seen in the past. Now, Robert Woods is not without his injury issues himself throughout his career. But at the same time, we don't need to talk about the wide receivers when we're talking about the Tennessee Titans. It's the Derrick Henry show, start to finish. And I think that's what's going to do it for them again. I think they're going to probably win this division, in my opinion. And yeah, they'll be on the back of Henry doing that the whole time. I think their draft pick in Malik Willis was absolutely phenomenal because it's going to add a whole different dimension to that offense once Tannehill does move on. Tannehill is not the most mobile guy. He plays a lot off the play action, but now you're adding in kind of this element of now we need to watch out for an extra runner in the backfield with Malik Willis. So yeah, I like that draft pick. I think it's one for the future. So if they can go ahead and kind of make the playoffs this season, I think they're in a very good position for next season to kind of go on and get that number 1 seed back again, and maybe, just maybe, make a run at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I like what you say there about Willis and sort of the extra runner option, which is something they could potentially do this year as well, because you have those, third and short situations, maybe a 4th and 1 or something like that. You have Willis and Derrick Henry in the backfield. The read option is going to confuse a lot of defenses as well. That I think could help them this season. But then let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Jake, I'm going to let you go first on this one. Tell me what you're thinking about the Colts this year.
Yeah, no, I like the Colts. I think getting rid of Carson Wentz is kind of, I don't know. It said there was a lot of locker room problems or something going on. Obviously, he just wasn't liked in that by the coaches there. Certainly, I don't know if it's an upgrade to say you're adding Matt Ryan to that team, but he's Matt Ryan. He's not going to be a bad quarterback as such. They still have a pretty decent offense, and yeah, I'm happy with them. I don't think they're Super Bowl bound. I think if they get a playoff, it might be an any given Sunday type job, but overall, I think they're okay. I don't know. They're the Colts, and they've always been the Colts to me.
Reen, I go to you on this one next. The Colts, how are you feeling about them this year?
Yeah, as Jake alluded to, my own opinion is probably a little bit different to his. It's kind of a bit of a head scratcher for me. You have Wentz, who is at least an athlete, playing a quarterback there. You decide to trash him on the way out the door, and then you go ahead and bring in Matty Ice, who is aging. Admittedly, he's still not too bad of a quarterback, but he is just a guy. He's not going to be the guy to win the game for you. I think the Indianapolis Colts are built on such a foundational backbone. They're strong throughout that whole team, offense and defense, and now they're just being hampered by that quarterback position. If they could have gone out in that quarterback carousel over the last couple of years and got themselves somebody really good, like say a Matthew Stafford or a Russell Wilson, I think they'd be in Super Bowl contention. But with Matty Ice under center, I'm not sure if they're going to win the division. They'll probably make it to the playoffs, but I'd say they're probably going to be a one and done, because when it gets to that top level, it really relies on the quarterback play from the offensive side.
I think they're just hoping on running on the back of Jonathan Taylor and having a good offensive line and having Matt Ryan to kind of game manage that offense, give them the little dink and dunks, let the running back do the job, and then kind of run it into that way. But is it going to be successful? Not in the long term. I don't think. They probably have them wins here or there, but I don't think they're going to get there on a sustained success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. And like you guys have, covered a lot of areas that I was going to bring up. Obviously, notably the quarterback. They haven't really ever gotten over the fact that Andrew Luck retired on them so prematurely. These fill-in quarterbacks here and there, from Brissett to Rivers to Wentz to now to Matt Ryan. It's a strange one, and I kind of fear for them a little bit this year. I think that they haven't really made a lot of improvements to that team that's needed, especially on offense. I, for one, was very critical last year of their wide receiving group, and they lost probably their best wide receiver in T.Y. Hilton. Now they have got Michael Pittman has shown glimpses and has improved year on year, so they're probably hoping for a breakout year for him this year. They drafted a young wide receiver, Alex Pierce, as well, so they're probably hoping for something with that too. But again, I'm not overly impressed in the wide receiver group. Like you mentioned, Jake, they'll probably rely a lot on Jonathan Taylor, but he can only do so much. If they're behind a bit in games, they can't keep relying on the run, because teams will just fill that box and hopefully force Ryan into making a mistake, which he has got in him. He's shown his age the last 2 years, especially in Atlanta, and maybe that's because he's had to take so much on his shoulders in there. Like you're saying, he won't be relied on hopefully as much now, so that he can sort of just have those important throws that he doesn't have to be thrown 40, 50 times a game. He could take it down to 30, 35, something like that. I'm sure it'd be ideal. On the defense side of things, it's interesting because their big offseason, two of their biggest offseason moves are on the defense. First of all, the trade for Yannick Ngakoue, which him on the line with DeForest Buckner and coming into a second year of Kwity Paye as well is going to be very, very good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. They've also brought in Stephen Gilmore after his, you could say, I probably, Ryan, you probably would know better, but he didn't really pull up any trees in Carolina with the Panthers after making that big move. So he's going to try and resurrect the form that he showed when he was with New England, when he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. And now with the Colts playing opposite Kenny Moore. But the defense is interesting. Like I said, the offense, I kind of worry for a little bit. But, like I said, I think if there's any team that's going to drop off, and I think it could be the Colts. I think that I worry for them this year, especially. Before we move on, does anyone else have anything else to say about the Colts?
A fair play to the Atlanta Falcons for listening to me and blowing up that team. Like I said, they must have watched the show when I said that. But so, you can always give me a jersey or something, a few tickets. I'll gladly accept.
Well, there's ways to blow up a team, and I don't think they blew it up properly. But yeah,
no, they didn't.
They ended up blowing
drafted
it up, so.
Kyle Pitts last year for some strange reason. But yeah, no, I agree with you.
We'll get on to the Falcons in a little bit for sure, and we can have a little more in-depth look on that. But let's move on to the third team in this division, the Houston Texans. And Ryan, I'm going to let you go first on this one. How are you feeling about the Houston Texans this year?
If I'm a Houston Texans fan, I'm not feeling too good about them. That whole organization has been a shit show for a few years now, and I don't know. I can't remember the QB's name.
Davis Mills.
He didn't show enough to me last year to be a starting quarterback in the league, so I don't know how the Texans have gone ahead and decided to give him one more year. Like, sure, he's grand, but he is backup quality at best. Couple all that with the whole Deshaun Watson nonsense that went on last year. They haven't really added any major names to that offense, to the best of my knowledge. So they're going to really struggle on offense again. I think they're going to really struggle on defense. It's going to be a race to the bottom for them and the Jaguars in that division.
Are you talking about Deshaun Watson, Texans safety? He was playing safety in their practice games last season. If you didn't know that, that's stupid. The whole carry-on of Deshaun Watson on that team was just ridiculous. The whole carry-on of that whole saga is ridiculous, but especially him refusing to play, but also playing practice squad safety or whatever he was at the time. But at Davis Mills, I am completely agree with you, Ryan, but I think there's one reason and one reason only they're sticking to Davis Mills, and it is that race to the bottom. So as far as I know, they just added a whole load of kind of depth signings that free agents that are kind of 2-3 year deals and probably on the back end of their careers anyway. So it's just about riding through this year, I think, and then getting them top quality draft pick next year and getting a quarterback and moving on from that. That's what I think they're just looking at next year, and that's it.
I feel like the Texans are a bit of a sleeper team for me this year.
Oh, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, no, not sleep. No. Hold on.
Put a number on it, Dara. Put a number on it. 10 wins.
Hang on. Can I tell you
what is it?
I'm going to tell you the over under.
Thursday, the 1st of September, 2022. Right.
I'll tell you the over under, or do you want to guess it?
The over under, I'm guessing, is what, 5.5?
I think I looked this up. I think it's 4.5.
4.5.
Because that's like, if you could just go over on that one. That seems like an easy win for you there.
Well, no, I look, the reason why I'm calling them a sleeper team for me this year, now, not that they're going to make the playoffs or anything like that. I think they'll beat their over, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of teams this year. I am not as down on Davis Mills as you guys are. I've seen potential in him. I've seen some decent games from him. The organization itself, the less said about the inner workings of that organization, the better. the fact the way they got rid of David Culley, and was disgusting as well. But now it's Lovie Smith there, so they're going to have to give him his backing. They got some interesting pieces. Brandon Cooks is still a really, really good wide receiver. Nico Collins showed flashes last year of how good he can be, and coming into this year again, he can probably show it. Damian Pierce, the rookie running back, is named RB1. He is going to be really good in this offense as well. Their downfall will be their defense. Why they lose most games this year will be their defense, but I don't think it's going to be the offense. And I think there's aspects
also
of
Davis Mills.
Sorry.
Also, Davis Mills. That's the other reason.
I don't think so. But
I just don't think he's got sustained success in him. Like, he's just not going to be able to do that. Like,
he may not. But I think that he might do good enough this year where he'll be one of those guys like a Tyrod, where teams are going to take punts on him saying he can be our starter, and then they'll realize after maybe a season and a half, like, okay, we were wrong, but he's got something, but he hasn't got what we need right now.
I tell you, if he starts to win games, the Texans are benching him for whoever is currently backing him up.
Possibly. I don't know who's back. I can't remember. They have so many roster moves this offseason that I couldn't tell you. I was going to say Nick Foles, but no, he's backing up Matty Ryan. So
the dynamic duo.
I know, right? Two old men in that.
I see Kyle Allen and Jeff Driscoll currently.
Kyle Allen
might
and
not
Jeff
be
Driscoll.
But...
So Washington Commanders and Carolina Panthers legend Kyle Allen is backing him up there. So we'll see. But no, look, they're not going to like win the division. They're not going to do anything crazy like that. But if it's what did you find out the win total was?
4.5. It was 4.5. Yeah,
4.5. I think they can get over that 4.5.
So just hammer it then. Hammer it there.
I think
you can easily put €1,000 on that if you want.
Jay, do you think I even have €1,000?
On that sweet podcast money now, Darren.
I put in more hosts now. It goes out evenly. I'm losing.
I really think that we need to discuss the coaching involved in the Houston Texans at the moment. I mean, Lovie Smith, wasn't he around that organization, went off for a little bit of a hiatus in college, had a couple of losing seasons, and then came back as the offensive coordinator, and now is the head coach? That to me is daft. How do you bring back a guy who fails in a college environment?
I feel like
to be your head coach eventually.
It's all about riding to next year. They just need a head coach. They need to roster 51 guys to get onto that field. Then they're just gonna blow it all up next year. New head coach, new offense coordinator, and quarterback, and everything. The whole team's gonna be a whole different face next year.
Well, the good news there is there's not a whole lot left to blow up, so it'll be an easy one to do.
We'll just see when it's like week 18 and they get that 5th win. I can come on to the show then the following week with a big smile on my face. And, do you remember, guys? Do you remember?
I just want everyone to know Derek called them a sleeper, and that's not winning 5 games.
Sleeper. I didn't say sleeper for the Super Bowl. I just said sleeper team.
No, we can't say 5 wins as a sleeper team, and that's all we have to say.
I just think people are underestimating them. I think they're actually got some pieces there that are interesting. Like I think Derek Stingley is going to be really good in their defense as well. Yeah,
no, we can agree with that one. Yeah, I can get on that one. I just don't think that team is going to be a sleeper team.
Okay, all right. We'll move on then to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were, of course, the worst team in football last year, getting the number 1 pick. And to some people's surprise, picking Trayvon Walker with the number 1 pick instead of Adam Hutchinson. Doug Peterson is now in charge of the team after the debacle that was Urban Meyer and his reign there. Thankfully, he's gone, but I feel the scars of that are going to remain. And by that, I mean Trevor Lawrence. He's lost basically a year in the NFL because of all the stuff that went on with Urban Meyer. Now, I don't think there's a better coach that you can get in to help build him back up than Doug Peterson, because he somehow turned Carson Wentz into an MVP. So he's obviously got some magic pixie dust somewhere there that he can sprinkle over Trevor Lawrence to make him a decent quarterback. He spent a lot of money in this offseason as well on free agents. and it's not the first time they've done it. The last time it didn't work, and I feel like this year I don't think it's going to work either. These teams that overspend on these free agents rarely do well, and I think that's what we're going to see again with the likes of paying so much money for Darius Williams and Christian Kirk and stuff that, look, no disrespect to those players, but they're not that level of money.
Christian Kirk is not a $72 million man is what you're trying to tell me.
Like all 31 other teams and GMs and owners were probably cursing at the Jaguars when they gave out that contract, considering how much they're going to have to pay their own wide receivers now because Christian Kirk is getting that money. Interesting aspect, though, now coming into this is James Robinson and Travis Etienne both fit at this moment. Obviously, the season hasn't started yet, so we don't know if they'll stay fit. But, it's interesting what their running backfield is interesting. I like that. But what do you guys think? I'll start with you, Jake, on this one, and then go to you, Rian. I was going to say Fionn. Oh, God. Jacksonville Jaguars, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm not too down on them. I don't think they're a great team. I don't think they're a sleeper team either, but I'm not too down on them either. I like their backfield, like the James Robinson and Travis Etienne combination. However that works out, I hope they use them quite well together. And although Christian Kirk and stuff are not the best wide receivers that we are currently having in the league, and are they sadly overpaid? Yes, but they're still quality wide receivers, and having quality pieces all around someone like Trevor Lawrence is only going to help them. So I'm not too down on that offense, and the defense. I don't know too many of them. I just know Josh Allen's on the team, and I like him as a linebacker. So I'm not too down on. I don't think they're going to be crazy good or anything, but they're going to beat teams that they shouldn't have probably bet at the start of the season.
Can you lock them in for not being the number one pick next year?
I'll say they're not number one next year.
I tend to agree with you there, Jake. I think there's more upside to this team than there is with the Texans, particularly this year. Questionable choice at number one for going for Trayvon Walker, considering the lack of production he had in college last season. But I mean, look, I heard a lot of people talk about this guy. He's a freak athlete. Yeah. All of the measurables you can possibly measure
throughout the draft process was he's an athletic freak. So I'm hoping that's just not why they picked him.
Right. We have seen athletic freaks in the past go in the first round and totally stink it up. But let's hope that's not the case for Trayvon, for his sake. But yeah, I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, I think a lot of people are very quick to hate on Lawrence. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I mean, just look at his career in college. He is one of the best we've seen in the past 10, 15 years. So he obviously has talent. He has the backfield now to back him up. They've dealt Laviska Shenault somehow, which is an obvious thing they should have done. So, yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to be upset about if you're a Jags fan. Obviously, it's not going to be Super Bowl bound. You're not going to be playoff bound. But as long as there's improvement this year over last year, I think they have the foundational building blocks to build into a decent franchise.
Yeah, and also we should mention, too, that, we are still waiting. Now, as we are recording this, or we're recording this on Tuesday, so just as cut days are there, we could be seeing James McCourt, Irishman James McCourt, being the kicker for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. So we should mention that too. And how big would that be to see James McCourt kicking in an NFL game?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely delighted for a lad from Ireland, from our own land, to make an NFL team. How rare is that?
Absolutely, yeah. No, great thing for the sport, great thing for Ireland, great thing for the NFL.
Yeah, I think what was the last one? Was it the 70s or the 80s? Was the last Irish player to play in the NFL? So it'll be absolutely huge, and we hope by the time this show goes out that James is a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars' final 53-man roster, and he will be there when they face who they facing first this time. Let me just have a quick look here. Who are they going to be facing? I want to say
Commanders. The Commanders.
Is it the Commanders? I thought it was, yeah. So when they face the Commanders, that we see James McCourt kicking for the Jacksonville Jaguars.